We are back with Mr. Mike from the Boys and Girls Club, but not any Boys and Girls Club. Where we located, Mike?
West Springfield, Massachusetts, Boys and Girls Club.
All right, now born and raised in Mass.
Sure was, yeah, Springfield actually. Moved over to West Springfield after we got married.
Okay, I'm from Mass, but I didn't spend too much time. I think I told you that. Lawrence.
Yep. Okay.
Not the best of places to be. It's a good thing that I did leave there when I did, but it's cool, man. So you stayed home. You're really working in the same neighborhood that you grew up in. Is that correct?
A little bit down the road, but yeah, same area, same general vicinity.
Love it. Why Boys and Girls Club? Why be surrounded with all these youngins? You know what I mean? When you could really be doing something out there that makes you a lot of money. I always say in the spaces that we're in, we're passion and purpose. There's a why behind it. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, really, growing up, single mom household and, worked hard to get everything we had and everything we could do. And, I got into this work right out of college and then I backed out of it for a while, going down that career path, thinking that, something, was bigger and better out there. And, I kept missing that sense of purpose, and all that kind of excitement that I had in that first job, working with kids, running camps, before and after school programs. And, I was in my hometown and I saw the director of operations open up at the Boys and Girls Club. And I said, this is it. This has got to be the spot for me. So, with that, it's really just, being it's a force for kids, someone to go to, someone, positive, male role model in their lives. So really just bring me back to the mission.
I love it. And it's so important for you to be a male in this space as well. I literally was having a conversation with my friend, and I'm 36 years old now, man. So sometimes when you receive these nice text messages, I'm like, yo, stop glazing me. For those for those that are young enough to or old enough that probably don't know what that is, it's just like really hyping me up, like giving me words of encouragement because we're not used to it. Um, so he sent me this, and I had to actually call him and have a conversation. And we're just talking is men don't do this enough, right? It is having these conversations, and how cool it was for me and him to have that moment. Because when we don't have that representation of what a male figure looks like, what a father or looks like, what being a man looks like, what being a leader looks like, and a lot of the times usually comes from a male in a household. You're in a special place, man, that you don't see enough of. Is that also reasons what gets you into it, man? Is knowing that representation doesn't just come from the color of our skins, but showing up as that male figure that made it out the other side?
Yes, sir. Definitely. If for me, you look at it and it's not just what it's supposed to look like, but different options, right? So,
Mhm.
what does that look like to be a male and in the world today is so different than it was even, 10 years ago. So, yeah, that keeps me motivated, when I know that I can be that for someone because I didn't have it, that means a lot to me. And I'm fortunate enough to watch some of these young folks kind of grow into what becomes staff for us. So, what starts as a journey of looking for somewhere to go after school turns into what could be a career for them. And honestly, there isn't enough male staff. There are not enough of them. And we had six join us this summer, which is like a
Good.
unusual amount. And we were, pretty excited about that just to see, that shift a little bit, be able to add them to our team.
Hell yeah, no, it's a big deal. I think it's always cool to, especially our younger leaders. I think there's more of them stepping up in this world and in this role, and it's really cool to just definitely see that. What are some of the resources that Boys and Girls Club provide that maybe communities don't even know, or people that are listening or watching don't know? Let's kind of talk about some of the things that are out there.
Sure. Yeah. So, really each club is pretty unique as to what their community needs are. For us, we look at childcare as one of our main, factors in the need in the community. But aside from that, it's providing quality programming for them when they're there, right? What are we doing with the hours that we have for them out of school time? Those are critical hours for them. And so we look to them. We say, what do you need from us? What do you want to do? And we kind of deviated from just basketball and soccer in the gym to technology and them, flying drones and 3D printing and really kind of getting their minds around different things and exposing them to things they may not have opportunity to otherwise. And so we continue to look at, okay, what else could we do? It used to be that celebrities would say, I threw the first pitch of a baseball at a Boys and Girls Club. And we're hoping someday they'll say, I flew my first drone at a Boys and Girls Club, you know?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, cool stuff happening. You didn't mention AI, man. What's up? Y'all teaching
We're
people
getting
AI
there.
over there?
We're getting there. We're getting there. We just wrote that policy. So
There we
stay
go. There we
tuned.
go.
We got to figure it out first.
I was actually talking to this leader today, and she was like, we know there's a need, right? It's just I need to be, as what you mentioned, really get educated around it, those policies, all these different things. But also think of the gap that's happening. I'm in around in the Orlando area, so Central Florida, such a huge district in Florida, and I think even in our country. But they actually put blockers around any of the AI in the schools. So if they're not learning it at the school, who's really teaching them, right? Now it's being self-taught at home and all these other things. So you talk about how crucial, right, it is for people like the Boys and Girls Club to really be ahead of the game because that's where they're spending their time. So if mom and dad can't teach them, if school's blocking it, where are we learning it from? Because it's such a unique tool and it's very different. I think it's going to change the landscape of how people get creative and how people jobs in general. I think at some point you're literally going to be applying for like a AI prompter, right? Because that's just the times we're going in. And yeah, I learned it at the Boys and Girls Club. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. We kind of when I started back at the club, we had a lot of video games going on, and I said, "What do we here for video games?" No, they can do that anywhere, and we got rid of that. But now we're building rooms specifically around esports
Video games.
and building careers around that. So you're not wrong, and AI is just something that I think we will figure out how to, embed into our technology for our kids. And again, like you said, it's just figuring it out first so that we use it right, so that we're using it smart and we're teaching them
Yeah,
the ways.
love it. I got a funny question for you. You ready? Are you Unk yet? Like they calling you Unk?
I've been umped for a few years now.
Oh, I hate when they call me that, man. I'm not that old. Like, stop it. But it's like we are, man. You're in your 30s, right?
Yeah, no, I'm in my 40s now, so
Oh, come on, Mike. You're
I'll
looking
take
good,
that.
my brother. You're looking good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always funny when I get Unk, and I'm like, bro, come on, stop doing that, okay? Could you just call me, Ephraim? Like, I'm cool with that. I'm completely cool. You can call me Mister Ephraim if you like, but no, man, it is cool to be in these spaces that we are literally fertilizing into the next generation of individuals, and that we could take experiences from not having a father to being a father to teaching others how to do all these things we never had or never seen. What a cool place. But I think our kids, man, teach us a lot as well. You mentioned you got some older kids. What did they teach you as you're in these room as a leader?
They teach me a lot. All the new sayings and all the things we need to be mindful of. Well, honestly, if you sit and really listen to what they're saying at the surface level, that's how we can identify what they're looking for, right? That's how we can connect with them. And sometimes it's just conversation and listening, and that's all they want. Someone to hear them out. There's a lot of people out there that just, kind of brush what they feel or what they say aside. Some because they don't understand, and some because they don't have the time or whatever the case is. But the time to listen to them is so impactful for them at that age. That middle school, high school age, they just want to be heard. They want somebody to listen to me. That's and then following up with that, right? Don't listen and say you're gonna do something, not do it because they're gonna call you out on that too. They're gonna make sure they hold you to it.
Man, you said a lot of things that we can really dig deeper in. So, one, you said holding to your word. A lot of these young kids, they've been told something by a parent, right? Myself, and they don't follow through. So it's like once you continue to not, someone continues to do that, like a mentor, is like can they believe? How can they see past, like I think a mentor is so crucial and not to be just there for a moment, but really to be there for seasons because that individual being there, yourself, myself, anybody that's listening, being there for that season truly make a difference on what that kid's life actually looks like because for so long I was told by my father or mother or something that they were going to show up, they were going to do this, they're going to do that, and they didn't, right? And how that was so hurtful, and it really kind of continued to dim my light and continue to kind of put these walls up that now it's harder for me and Mike to kind of bring down. So I think it is what you said is listen. I was just having this conversation with my co-host is one of the things I think I've done better as a leader is to sit here and listen to somebody's pain, to sit here and listen to what their ask is, and really, as you mentioned, follow through or try to give the best advice possible if that's what they're looking for. Sometimes they're just wanting to vent. So, I mean, are we on agreement to some of these, man? How important it is not to just to do the work, but be consistent with it?
You have to be. And that's one thing that even during the interview process with staff, we talk to them about that consistency because the reality is that, these kids sometimes get dropped off at 7 a.m. and they don't get picked up till 5:30. Those parents are working. We have more time with them. We have more opportunity to connect with them than their own family does in some situations. And so what I tell people all the time is that, we're hiring people and it doesn't matter what the building looks like. We're hiring for the people. And we need people who are going to show up for our kids because a lot of them don't have consistency. They're all over the place. Some of them are being, going from one home to the other, from, one bad situation to another. And so we have to be that positive consistency. And I start that in the interview process because I want people to understand, it is not just a job. It's not just a job. Like there's an impact here. And, the cool thing about it, I always tell them is that it's going to be a two-way street because you're going to feel good about it, and they're going to feel good about it. And when you see them in the grocery store, 10 years later and they remember you by name, Unk or not, you're gonna feel really good about that.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. I'm at we're both at those ages where I'm seeing some of the people that I mentored. I used to work at a karate and boxing gym, and I was 15 years old, so I was straight out of high school, and I would help them with like their homework. These are people in elementary or middle school, and I would help them with their homework. And now seeing one of them actually is a professional boxer,
It's awesome.
and knowing that he was such a smart kid and all that, and he stayed to one boxing, but can imagine not only now is he a boxer, but the dude's intelligent, and how cool was that? Because he had great mentors and people that believed in him. It is one of those rewarding things you mentioned. It's not a job; it's truly purpose. A lot of reason I can imagine, Mike, that you're there is truly just passion and purpose. And when people understand that and can see that, I was actually talking to somebody earlier. Sometimes you're not going to actually see every seed you plant watered or grow, but knowing that you're a part of it and knowing that you're just doing the right thing,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think it's a huge factor.
Yeah.
Um, when you mentioned middle school, I also heard that middle school is probably the most crucial years of a student's life. That's really where the gap starts because you're in elementary when you are this star in elementary, and then you go into middle school. One, you kind of the middle school hours are a little different, but you kind of lose that support. You're trying to find yourself because now you have multiple classes. It's a new environment, and you're right. The parents can't show up to a lot of these things. Are you seeing that? Is this true facts that you're witnessing being firsthand?
Yeah, the unique thing that happens once they get to that age as well is that, they're on the cusp of needing childcare and needing mentorship. And there's those
Mm.
different things, right? Mentorship is so critical for them at that age because most times parents are like, we don't really need the club, we don't need that stuff. So we have to be intentional with the programmings that we create and listen to what they want. So they do come through those doors, right? It's putting surveys, we go to lunches at the middle school all the time and find out, okay, what do you guys want to see next? What will bring you in the doors? What excites you about the Boys and Girls Club? This is your club, right? This is your community. What do you want from us? And, you know, they do give you that feedback and they do show up. When you go out there and you ask them for those things, they're going to show up and they're going to expect that you do what they say. If they pick a theme to a dance on a Friday night and you don't use that theme, they're going to tell you about it when you walk in the front door. Um,
Yo, Unc, what happened to my song, Unc?
exactly. Exactly. But you're not wrong. Like they sometimes get fall behind. There's a lot of that in between, and they get to high school. It's like, all right, college preparedness, getting ready. Get into the real world. What job do you want? Middle school kind of like is that influx time. They're growing. Their minds are growing, and they're trying to figure themselves out and where they fit now. And we have to be there for them. And so that is an area that we're continually looking at growing. How do we keep them? The best part is if we're intentional with how we work with them all the way through. So if they start with us in preschool, they know they can rely on us by the time they get to middle school. So
Mhm.
they're going to shape what it looks like, and that's what we want. We want them to shape that future for us.
Are you guys just doing one location or are you guys at the schools?
No, so we have 4 locations offsite and then 1 Main Street location. And the offsite locations are in the schools. Our club has the most to offer. We've had a lot of renovations. We have tech lab, the gym, STEAM lab. We have all kinds of things in the building that are just, available to them. So But we offer those programs to those parents who just need that after school care within the schools. And that's nice because they leave school, they don't have to leave the building. They go right to our staff, and we're running programs. And so, over 300 kids a day we're seeing, and then summer camp's a full day with more kids. And so again, it's making sure that the programs we're developing, the time we're putting into it is based on the needs and what they want. Because I'm not 14 anymore, I'm not 6 anymore, and I can only go by what I know, and I have to hear what the kids are saying, and the staff want to hear that.
Yeah. I love it. Do you think that there's I don't know if the Boys and Girls Club do that, but a resources that maybe these teens also need after hours? You mentioned being there 7:30 in the morning to, let's say, 5:30, 6 o'clock. I don't know what time you guys physically close, but what happens after hours, right, with some of these kids? Are you guys providing those resources or at least like online or anything like that?
We are, yeah. So what we do is during the school year, we find that from September to about May, we open the doors just to that age group. So middle school only, they're open till 7:30 and running pretty much whatever they want. They want the gym open, they want to run some games, they want the tech lab open and playing video games and doing whatever. Those are the things they want, but they want that time. They want that time away that makes them feel, like they have something. This is a space for them. It's different because there aren't any kids from 2.9 to, 12 hanging out. It's their space during that time.
Mhm.
And it's important, that time is. And here's the thing: are they going to be there every day? No, but the option is always there for them. So growing that membership base has been a big focus for us for the past, I'd say 3 or 4 years, is how to get them in and listen to what they're saying. And it ebbs and flows, right? There's some nights we have 35 kids in there, sometimes we have 5, right? But we look at it like those 5 more kids, what else would they be doing? Where would they be? And there is not a lot of options anymore. Going to the mall and hanging out isn't what it used to be. Some malls don't want you there. It's not safe there sometimes. Or you go somewhere else to, a trampoline park and you're paying $20 an hour. Is that affordable for a 13-year-old? Probably not. So we have to be an option for them.
Remember the days, Mike, where being at the mall on a Friday, Saturday night was a thing,
That was the
man?
place to be.
No, they're all just abandoned. At least here, I've seen so many of them being, abandoned or, new things happening to them. But, no, man, all that it is, so true, and it's cool. So the 4 locations, is it, um so they're just are you growing more than 4? Is that the end goal?
Honestly, it's gonna be whatever way we can serve more kids, right? So if it's, those 4 places end up with more kids or we need more space, our building is at its max right now. We are, really looking at what the future is for us. And so what that means is we go back to the drawing board in our community and say, what is it else? What else do you need from us? Where do you need us in the community? What void can we be filling for you if there's a need? So it may be more buildings, it could be more locations, or it could just be expanding in those other locations. The schools themselves, those are growing every year. We add a few more kids every year to those programs, and they filter into the vacation weeks that were open, and they filter into summer camp, those full days. So it's always an option to grow. The other area that we started adding some unique options is in enrichment programs, which are really kind of a la carte, if you will. You get to decide: do I want to take a robotics course? Do I want to take, and it's an hour a week, very, very low cost, just so that kids that don't play sports or do other things have another option, have another social outlet, have a place where they can try something new. And so that's grown pretty tremendously because some parents don't need 5 days a week, programming. They need an hour here and there. Then helps them. The kids love it, and that's been last year we saw over 250 kids go through that program. Never mind the childcare program. So there's ways to grow, right? There's ways to connect. It's just each community, what do they need from us?
How big is the building you guys have now?
So our facility right now, I think we're 35,000 square feet. We have a gym, we have a large field, we have preschool rooms, we have tech lab, video game lab, traditional
Yeah, I
board
know.
of game room.
I know it had to be big. You told me all these things. I'm
It's
like, "Wait a minute."
it's big. It's big. We got the space, but we're growing out of it, which is a good problem to have.
Good good problem. Yeah, good problem. Where does the funding come from the schools? Is this budget in there, or is it,
Nope.
at no cost to them? What does it look like?
No, so we have a board of directors, and they're the ones that oversee everything that we're doing, and the funding comes from a lot of different places. It comes from donors, it comes from corporations, it comes from grants, it comes from some private pay from parents. So it's our job to find that funding, and our board is never turns anybody away. So they'll find the money
Mhm.
to keep those kids coming through the door. We're not turning anybody away. But it is a variety of places, and you have to keep looking and keep turning over different rocks and talking to different people, and sharing ways they can impact our kids. That's key. Building those relationships in your community with those people is what helps us keep going.
But yeah, relationships matter 100%.
Absolutely.
So so there's no cost to the schools that you're currently in? Like, they don't pay for that? It
No, the
is
the parents pay for it, the schools do not. No, there's no fee to the schools, it's just a service that we provide. They give us some space, and we hire the staff, we train the staff. We've invested a lot into that, making those full-time positions for our site director so that we can, keep good people. We've seen the positive results of that. And then we're providing part-time jobs to a lot of college kids who are in educational field, or looking to work with kids in psychology. We have some high schoolers that come in just to assist. So it's a good opportunity. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, that's cool. The only reason I asked that is because, I have a athletic director in the high school that he always says, "Man, it's sad that we have to kinda send these kids off campus, right? We just don't have the resources. We don't have, the really the budget to have someone, in that room," and it's kinda like a weight room. And he's like, I would love for the kids to be able to go do something in there, whether it's working out, their schoolwork, but in reality, I have to send them off campus. And not, you know how campuses are nowadays, really locked down. So once you're out the campus, you can't come back in. And I think about organizations like the Boys and Girls Club, and it's like, and there's probably so many more resources the same, but it's like, how do we, as you mentioned, make that difference? Because you know how many times I drive to that school at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and still seeing a student that is sitting out there, and it's like, damn, the time that is being wasted that we could really be pouring into that child, to make them feel seen and like they're not alone or abandoned or whatever they may feel like at that moment. Because our minds were racing, right? As kids, man, we just talked about my son just waking up, just slapping someone because the mind is racing as youngins. So it's cool to know that you guys are actually doing this at really no cost to the school and really helping out. That and that you guys care, not just you as a person that's running the Boys and Girls Club, but the board behind the scenes. I think they'll get the recognition sometimes they deserve. When you talk about this board, is it past members? Is it, parents? Who's on this board?
Sure, it's a mix. The idea is that the board should represent the community that we're serving, right? And it really does. We have quite a few board members that came through those doors, when it was the boys club, before it was the Boys and Girls Club. And so they have a lot of memories, and what they want to see is that continued growth. And then we have some parents of some new members that, they're, in their first stages of joining the club, and they're excited about what the next steps are and what we can do. So we have a really great developed board. Our CEO does a great job of really tapping into those people that we know in the community can really help take us to the next level. And their commitment to the staff, I'd like to say we have one of the best boards because they'll walk through the buildings and they know people by name. They're
Yeah.
coming in and checking in, and that kind of impact goes a long way when you're staff in the building. They're not just people who are looking at the governance and money and policy.
Mhm.
They're talking to the people, and that motivates you, that really motivates you.
How many kids do you guys see a year?
So it depends. I mean, we last year was over 600, in total, throughout the different programming. And then we open up the gym to a couple of community groups that use it. So, with suburban basketball, CYO, other teams. So we see, a couple hundred more through that. So just, continue to grow, how do we,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I love it, man. And as we start wrapping up, man, what are some of the goals? I always like to hold accountable. So if we talk again,
Yeah.
I can ask you like, "Yo, Mike, you told me you're gonna do this, man. So what's up?" So really thinking about, I guess, the next 5 years. You talked about some expansion. I'm pretty sure maybe some programs, curriculums, but where do you want to see yourself as a leader in the next 5 years, as well as the Boys and Girls Club? Where do you want to see them?
I think continuing to evolve. For myself, I love to keep growing within this organization. Maybe someday running the organization. But for the club itself, is what the next evolution of that looks like. Because we can't rest on our laurels, and I think one of the areas that we need to focus a lot of time is that workforce development. That life and workforce development. So how do we get the next generation prepared and how to be a good employee, how to be
Mhm.
dedicated to your work. And we're starting to see that. We have a work-based learners program, and we do start to see the ethic, the coming in for the interview, showing up to work every day, wearing the uniform. Those little things matter.
Yeah,
It's
dude.
like they're starting to get it, but there's so much more opportunity out there for that age group. And making sure that we find those resources for them, connect them with those resources, and keep them coming to the building, and hopefully
Love
someday
it.
one of them is sitting in my seat, right, and saying,
That's it.
I'm the next, chief operating officer, which would be awesome.
Yeah, I laugh when you mentioned, showing up on time and work because I get a little scared sometimes, man. I'm not out there leading teams anymore, but when I was, and there were some of these that were just my work ethic, man, I showed up. I didn't call out. I mean, I was there from even on my days off, call me type ish. And I just kind of get scared sometimes. So knowing that Mike is out there teaching it, all right, cool. We're in a better place. We're in a
We
better
are,
place,
and I'll
Mike.
tell you, there is a little gap there, but right now we do see this next group coming through excited to work, and
Love it.
those teens are coming through excited. So I'm
Good,
I'm
good.
staying hopeful and positive.
There you go, man. And just the last question to close us off. When we talked about representation earlier, is people that not look like us because we're Latinos or because we're light skinned or anything, but because there's men out there, there's little boys out there. How about that? That don't have a father figure, or even little girls out there that don't have a father figure and just don't have the guidance. What do we tell them?
Keep going. Be yourself and keep going. I think really the encouragement is what they need. Growing up that way and having other people in my lives to keep me encouraged is what kept me kind of motivated to be who I am. And I think that that's really what they need. They need somebody who's going to mentor them and say to them, it's okay to be who you are. Figure that out, because when you don't have that encouragement, the opposite, you get lost. You said before, your mind is always running, right? And then they can get lost in that when there's no one there to reassure them that the future's bright for you as long as you want it to be, and there's ways for us to help you get there. So um, that's critical for me for them. Keep going.
That Mike, I appreciate you. I appreciate the
Yeah.
conversation, man. And you are 100% right. If you don't keep going, you just don't know what the end looks like. And we probably have all seen this image through social media, and it's that guy that's chasing that diamond and quits right before he gets there. And that's usually what life looks like. You're in a dark tunnel. You may not see the light at the end of it, but if you continue to stay persistent, surround yourself with good people. Find people like Mike. Find organizations like the Boys and Girls Club, because there's that one moment or one organization that would change your life. Mike, it's been a pleasure talking to you, my brother. Continue doing the amazing work. And I know there's so much more in store.
Yeah, man.
My name's Efrain.
Thanks.
This is Mike. We'll catch you in the next one.
Take care.
Later.